Power-on stalls are one of those maneuvers that seem simple on paper, but difficult when you actually start to learn how to put it in practice. There's a lot going on. The pitch attitude is high, there's a lot of negative effects from the propeller, the tail still has a lot of effectiveness even though the wing is about to stall. It makes it difficult. But today we're going to go out and we're going to practice. We're going to see, hear, and feel what we need to make the maneuver a success. We're going to look at coordination and what it takes to keep the airplane straight and centered. And then we're going to look at different recoveries and what happens if we drop into a spin or if we handle the recovery correctly. And if we do all that, we won't just be recovering, we'll master the maneuver. Let's get started.
All right, everyone, we've got the Luscombe up in cruise, and today we're going to be looking at power-on stalls. Right, so in the introduction we talked about how power-on stalls can be difficult, right? And what is the first area of difficulty that we run into when we're doing this maneuver? Well, the first thing that I see with brand new student pilots is just knowing what to observe. Right, it's a complicated maneuver, there's a lot going on, the nose is up, where do we look, right? So if you're going out and it's your first time doing power-on stalls, maybe just ask the instructor to demonstrate them, right? If you're not comfortable with what you're seeing yet. And as instructors, we should never just demonstrate something once when we're initially showing them, right? We need to demonstrate them maybe multiple times, 2, 3, maybe even 4 times, maybe even across several flights, right? And so, I've found that with my students that if I do a demonstration and then I ask them, do you want to see it again? They almost always say yes. So we're just going to do some demonstrations here of power-on stalls, and I'm going to talk through what to look for, what to see, what to feel, what to hear even, right? So we're here at 4,000 feet at 90 miles an hour, and I'm just going to go ahead and go full power, and I'm going to smoothly, slowly start pulling back on the stick, close up my vents here. Okay, I've already traffic checked, looked around, we're looking good. And so we're just going to slowly start pulling back on the stick. Now the first thing you notice is that we lose the horizon out in front of us, right? And we're not even to the stall yet, right? But we lose the horizon, so where do we have to look? Well, obviously on my panel here I don't have an attitude indicator, and even if you have one, you probably shouldn't be looking at it, right? And so what that means is we need to be able to look off the wing. Right, so I'm looking out the right side right now, and I'm going to do my power-on stall, right? And I'm just looking out the right side. I see the pitch attitude rising in the wing, airplane brakes, and I lower the stick, right? So I'm completely comfortable just looking out a side window and doing a power-on stall, right? Hopefully you've done some flying off the wing already, right? Not just looking over the nose, or worse yet, just looking at the instruments, right? But we need to have confidence to look outside at the wing, and even just, even out here to the left or out here to the right, and have a good sense of, are we level, right? Because we need to be level as we go up into the power-on stall. So now I'm just going to kind of switch my view from over here to the left, and, a little glance at the left wing, yeah, we're level, and look over here to the right, yeah, we're level, okay, take a glance at the ball, yeah, we're level, but I come back outside, right? And there it stalls, and I push it forward, right? So there's really no reason to be just staring straight ahead in a power-on stall. If you're doing that, you're probably not going to see the bank and pitch cues that you really need to get the job done, right? So one thing that I like to have my students do is I'll just have them look out the right window and do a turn. And we're just looking out the right wing, and it can be kind of disorienting at first. It's like, whoa, that's kind of odd. It's kind of like looking out the window of an airliner, right? But now you're the one up front flying it. And then I'm going to roll out, and I can do a nice 90-degree turn, especially here in the Midwest. I can go from the road's going this way to the road's going this way. And now I'll look out the left window, and I'll do a turn to the left. And we can see a lot just looking out the side windows. And I think in a previous video I demonstrated this. Maybe I'll put a link here for you to go see that. Of just looking out the side window, right? But we can see our pitch and our bank and even our yaw side to side in the outside window. So the first and most important thing with a power-on stall is you just have to be very comfortable with sensing your pitch and bank by looking in another direction other than over the nose. Okay, I'm going to do another one just looking off the left wing now. Okay, I pull up, There we go. And the right wing dropped a little bit, and I saw the left wing go up on that, so that kind of told me that we were rolling there. Okay, so that's the first thing. Now, when we look inside, what are we looking for? Well, not much. Really, about the only thing I come inside to look for is the ball, okay? Because the two, well, you might say the two most important ingredients to a power on stall is keeping her coordinated, keeping her level, okay? So I can sense my level looking outside, but I also have to come in and look at the ball. So I'm looking out the left wing, we're coming up, okay, check my ball, look off the right wing, yep, looking good, okay, ball's coming in, good. Okay, look off the left wing, good, ball's in the middle, look out the right, ball's in the middle, here comes the brake, push it forward. Okay, so we want to learn how to split our attention from outside to inside with very little time spent inside, but mainly checking that coordination. Okay, so that's the first thing we need to see. The next thing we have is sound, right? So if I pitch up into a coordination, or into a power on stall here, we're going to hear the engine load up. I don't know if you can hear that over the video. I can hear it. I'll kind of keep the squelch open here. Oh, maybe not. Okay, but anywho, the engine goes from right as we get slower. So that's helping us sense that we're getting slower. Okay. We can also hear the rush of the airflow and as well as the sound of the engine, but both of those are helping with that. Okay, and then feel. The nice thing about a good power on stall is that it's basically a 1G event. Yes, as we pitch up, we are adding a little bit of G on top of 1G. Otherwise, the airplane wouldn't pitch up. But it's very gentle if we do it gently, right? And so we're really not feeling much. And as we stall there, we stall, right? We feel a tiny drop in the seat of our pants as we let the stick forward, but it's not like the bottom's falling out from underneath you or really anything. So we got that. And then we also have the stick pressure in our hands. So as I come up, the only way to make the airplane stall in this case is to pull the stick back, right? So if you don't pull the stick back, it ain't gonna stall, right? And so I'm pulling, pulling, pulling. So I feel my hand sliding back across my thigh, and I can feel the pressure building in my hand. So I'm looking for that as well. Okay, so we should be sensing all those things. And that brings up a good point of what I said earlier. You got to pull back on the stick to stall. And if you want, go watch my stall stick position video and my other previous stall video on some of this stuff. But one of the big things I see in power on stalls, really any stall, but power on stalls, is we get the nose up, you know, maybe we're about here, and you know, maybe the coordination's not quite right or something, and then the student kind of freezes, right? So I'm not pulling back on the stick anymore, right? And now the nose is dropping a little bit because the airplane's trying to find its steady condition. It's like, I just want to do one thing, and so it's trying. And so we're sitting here at 55 miles an hour, or 50 miles an hour, and the airplane's just not stalling, right? So you got to pull the stick back to get it over with. There it goes. Okay, so if you don't pull the stick back, it ain't going to stall. Okay, now, so we've talked about demonstrations and what we need to see and hear and feel. You know, you might even smell a little bit on a power on stall. That was one of my first distinct memories of doing it, was the smell of exhaust, right? Because the way the airflow changes and the exhaust from the engine, sometimes you get a little bit in the cabin and then you feel kind of nauseous, and that's not fun, right? So we got that. Okay, now let's talk about stall stick position just a little bit here. We've talked about this somewhat in other videos, but we've got a bunch of new people on the channel. Thank you all for subscribing and watching. And so we need to think about, hey, where is the stick when the airplane stalls? And this gets to our next big question of when will the airplane stall. And so I just took the power out, carb heat is out, power is at idle. And now I'm going to keep track of where the airplane stalls in terms of stick position. And I'm going to try and do this nice and gentle. And I'm pulling back on the stick, pulling back, keep her coordinated. Pulling, 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 pulling. Right, the slower you do this, the more, or the closer you get to it actually telling you what the 1G stall speed is. Okay, there it is. So about an inch shy of all the way back. Okay, So now I'm going to check where that is with full power. And this is going to tell us something interesting. So yeah, we're good, looking around. Okay, so now I'm going to pull up and do another stall. Where is the stick this time? Okay. There's the stall. And about, 2 inches shy of all the way back. So the stick was in a different position when we stalled. Okay, now how we got there is the same. We pulled the stick back, right? So if you're pulling back on the stick, you're headed towards stall, right? It's that simple. But that doesn't mean we can know exactly where the stick will be without knowing what the airplane's doing otherwise, right? But it wasn't the same where it was power off. And so now we have to ask, well, why is that the case? Well, the answer is pretty interesting, and it's because the propeller up front is spinning in a power on stall faster, right? It's making more power. And it blows more air back over the tail, and that gives the tailplane more effectiveness to rotate and torque the airplane into a stall and tip that wing up to its critical angle of attack. And so because it has more airflow, it doesn't need as much elevator, right? So it will stall sooner and with less back stick. Okay, so we got that. Let's see what's next on our list here. Okay, next thing is going to be coordination and wings level. Okay, so let's look at what happens if we do a power on stall without any rudder at all. Okay, this is going to not be pretty, right? And in the beginning I said it's important to see demonstrations that don't go right so that we know what right looks like, right? So we're here at 85 miles an hour, slight descent, and the airplane's coordinated. Now I'm going to fly full power. I'm going to lock my feet. I'm going to resist the urge to push on the rudder pedals. Oh, man, I want to push right rudder so hard right now, but I'm not going to, right? And what I'm going to do is keep the airplane level with the stick. And what we see is that the ball comes out the right, and the airplane is now turning to the left, and this is what we call a skidding turn. This is not good, okay? And we're pulling, and I'm trying to keep the airplane level, and then it drops off to the right, woohoo, or to the left, excuse me. I can't keep my left and right straight today, as usual, as you've all learned, right, about me. Can't keep left and right straight. Okay, we're going to turn back to the west, because that's where the wind's coming from. And we're clear. Love my top window here for right turns. Okay, so that wasn't good, right? Now let's look at what happens if we don't worry about keeping the wings level and we just keep the ball in the middle. Okay, so now I'm going to lock my left and right on the stick. I'm not going to do that. And I'm going to just keep the ball in the middle with the rudder. So there we are, ball's in the middle. All right, I'm not going to move the stick side to side. I'm just pulling it back. And pull it back. And there we go to the right. Whee! Okay, so that's not good. Okay, so that'll give you a little clue, depending on how you're using the controls, about what's happening if you're not braking them straight ahead, right? But what we want to do instead to avoid a spin is to keep the airplane coordinated and wings level. And so what does that actually look like? Well, it actually looks like in this particular airplane, and probably in yours, although I don't know what you're flying. But most likely it's going to look at some tiny little bit of left stick and right rudder together. And that's what we truly mean by coordination, right? Coordinating, using both. Coordination doesn't mean just using the rudders to keep the ball in the middle. That's not what coordination means. Go watch my coordination video if you haven't seen that. And I get into this some more. But now, let's use both together. And it's very subtle. It's very subtle. I've had people get all mad at me and tell me that I shouldn't be doing this or that I'm teaching this wrong or something. And then I've actually gone out with a couple of them and shown them, hey, look, you're gently moving the stick to the left. And they're like, oh, I never noticed that before. Okay, so we're coming up. I've brought in, I mean, it's just the tiniest little bit of left stick as I bring in right rudder, right as I bring in right rudder. And then when the airplane stalls, I stop using stick because that could make things worse. and we brake it straight ahead. Mostly straight ahead. It's a couple of degrees off there. Let's do it again, right? Coming up. Right, the rudder steps on the ball, but the stick pulls the ball around, right? So if I pull the stick to the left, the ball's going to go to the left. And so I can use both of those together to keep her straight in the brake. There we go. Not perfect, but yeah, using both together to keep the wings level and the ball in the center. Okay, let's look at what's next. Sorry, I have a short memory. I can't keep track of what to do next. I gotta look. Okay, different entry rates. Okay, this one's fun. So we want to look at, you know, how are we going to do these stalls? Well, there's lots of different ways that people do these, okay? The first is that, the first idea, and this is, correct me if I'm wrong, from the ACS, that this is simulating a departure stall or a stall on takeoff, right? So some people say, okay, well then the first thing we need to do is slow down to our rotate speed. Okay, we can do that. So we go carb heat out, we go power to idle, trimming the nose up. Okay, we get to 55 and then we pour the coals to it. Pitch, 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 pitch. Looking out my left window this time. Woohoo! Over the top we go. Okay. Good. So you can do that, right? It's a little more tricky. It's good because you start at a slower speed, right? So you have less speed to bleed, right? But now you got to deal with a rapid change in P factor, spiraling slipstream, torque, and all that, right? So you're going to have to be Johnny on the spot on the rudders, okay? And you got to remember the carb heat, right, and all that good stuff. So that is one way to do it, okay? Now we might do almost the exact same thing. We could slow down. Okay, throw in our trim. You know, trim helps. Not super effective on a Luscombe, but it's there. Okay, we get to 55. And then some people will do this really quickly. They'll go like this. Right? Okay, and it's over with. That is a way to do it, right? I'm not a big fan of that. I taught that for a while. But, right, you can really get wacky on the coordination there unless you're really on Johnny on the spot with your feet. That doesn't always go so well. Look where I'm at here. Okay, there's Brainerd. That's probably North Bend back over there. Don't want to get too close to Columbus, so I'll go ahead and turn around here, clear left. Let the wind carry us back towards Wahoo. I doubt we're as far to the west as I thought we were, but we'll take a look here. I love working here in Wahoo. It's such a beautiful area around this neck of the woods. I have the Platte River to the north and to the east of Wahoo, and then Lincoln's to the south, and then we have the start of the Platte River Valley where it curves to the south to the west of here, and it's a dramatic change. If you've ever driven down I-80, right, you go down 80 and you get past Lincoln and boom, it just opens up because you come into the wider Platte Valley. But here we call this area the Bohemian Alps, and it's just a hilly area and it's real pretty. Sorry for the ramble. All right, so yeah, let's do that again. We'll do the entry here where we slow down and yank it back. This is really using G to get the pitch up quickly and get her slowed down. Like I said, it is a way some people do it. Not a big fan, but here we go. So, you know, if I pull up and I'm not coordinated right, and I don't do that right, we might roll off. And we don't want to do that, right? So we'd have to be Johnny on the spot to do that. Okay, so we got that. And then maybe you're going to enter the maneuver from a high speed. So let's see what that looks like. Oh yeah, we really didn't work as far west as I thought we had, but we're still over Prague. Okay, so let's see if we can max out the Luscombe here. Right, and then this maneuver gets into, well, how fast are you coming into this, right? Because if we come into it really fast, right, we're going to have a really high pitch rate, and that's going to make the brake more aggressive, and that's not pleasant. But we'll look at it, okay? So we want to be coordinated. We're doing 100. You know, this thing, if we give her time, she'll get 105. There we go. In the summertime at least. Okay, so here we are, and we pitch up into it. Whoa, there we go. Right, and now the problem is if we get the pitch up really high, right, and then we get the brake over the top, right, we get a good brake. Gets a little messy coming over. Not the perfect recovery there, but yeah. So, not a fan there, right? And so what we really want to do is we want to find what pitch attitude does the airplane just want to sit at right before it brakes, right? So I'm going to bring the pitch up, and we're going to try and find it. I think we kind of looked at this, but not in this light a minute ago. We're going to look at, okay, what's the pitch attitude when we're right above stall? Okay, so about there. Okay, well, I'm looking out, and I can see where the horizon's cutting my dash over here and over there. Okay, and then I pull up past that, and it stalls. Okay, so what I would tell my students to do is let's just pick an average middle speed. Right, maybe we're here at 70. And because, you know, we might be climbing out at 65 or 70, you know, right after takeoff. And then smoothly apply power. And then just bring the pitch attitude up to that pitch attitude we just found right there. Okay, head on a swivel, balls in the middle, looking out the right. And we just hold it up here by pulling back on the stick. Okay, and then once the airplane gets slow, well, then we just pull the stick back and it stalls. Okay, there we go. Okay, now I think pitch rate on recovery is up next. Let's see here, what's going on. Okay, so we're going west again, and now we want to look at the pitch rate in the recovery. Okay, so I'm going to just use my standard power on stall pitch attitude here that we just learned. Bring it up here, hold it, back pressure, back stick is holding it up there, and then once we get her Guten slow, right, the German slowing down method, Guten slow, we pull back and we slam it forward. Okay, well, you can do that, it does work, right? And the FAA has gotten really big in the last couple of years on aerodynamic first recoveries, right? And there is nothing wrong with that. It is a good thing, right? To get the aerodynamic recovery done. I'm all for that. The problem is sometimes you're a little close to the ground, right? And so one size does not always fit all. And so we might sometimes do the recovery fast, sometimes we might do it slow. Right? It can depend on the airplane and the conditions. You know, some airplanes, it just depends. So I'm not going to make a universal statement there, but we'll do that one again where we push it forward real aggressively. So, there we go. And even in the Luscombe, it's pretty hard to get a lot of reduction in the G, right? I really didn't even feel like I floated out of my seat there. I am buckled in pretty tight, but, you know, it wasn't like, you know, it felt like I was coming out of my seat or anything. So there's nothing wrong with that, okay? And then we can look at, you know, recovery that's too slow. So we come up here, looking around, balls in the middle, wings are level, little rudder coming in, okay? And now we're afraid to push forward, and now we hold the airplane, right? And now we might get a wing drop or something like this, and then we call this the falling leaf maneuver, right? And that's not letting the stick forward enough, soon enough, right? So we wouldn't want to do that. But, you know, maybe you got something right in the middle. Okay. Let's see here. Coming up. We'll try and just do medium. This would be my medium power on stall. Coming up, coming up, coming up. Stall and just push her down. Right? Airplane's flying again. Right? We can roll her back and forth to show that, right? So forward stick will get that angle of attack down and we're back to flying again, right? So there you go on pitch rates in the recovery. And now let's look at what happens when we try to use Aileron to fix a rudder problem in the stall itself, right? Because when we stall the airplane, the ailerons get goofy, right? And depending on, and there's a whole lot of qualifications on this, but the ailerons will sometimes keep doing what they've been doing. Sometimes they will reverse what they were doing. Sometimes they just won't do much at all. It's complicated, okay? But if you're interested, you can go Google aileron or stall aileron reversal. That would be the worst case. But we'll kind of look at that here. So let's say I come up into a power on stall and I'm not quite coordinated, right? So I'm not going to use enough rudder as I come up into this, right? And so now the airplane starts pulling off to the left, and then I pull back and stall, right? Well, in that case, it dropped off the other way. That didn't quite give me what I wanted. Let's see here. Let's try that again. I'll try to get it to brake left here. All right, so we come up, and we brake, and then we see that way, and then we're working the stick, and the stick's just doing nothing, right? And there's a spin. There we go. Okay, so that wasn't good, right? So, yeah, the last thing you want to be doing is rolling against roll in the stall with the ailerons, right? Bad idea, bad idea. Let's try and do it again. Coming up, rack it around, right? There we go. I got the stick all to the right and the airplane's rotating left. Bad juju, right? Don't want that. I'd really aggravate it to do that. But you really got to be telling yourself when you're doing power on stalls and the airplane stalls, don't twist the yoke. Don't rack the stick, right? It's not doing what you think it's doing anymore. That's what aileron lift reversal is getting into. You could actually be asking an aileron to roll the airplane and it'll roll it the other way in certain circumstances. Okay, we kind of saw that here, right? The airplane was yawing and rolling left. I had the stick all the way to the right and it just kept going, right? So that's what we're trying to avoid. Now, let's look at what that looks like if we were doing it on purpose, right? So maybe we're trying to do a spin out of a stall. We can certainly do that out of a power on stall. Remember our recovery procedure: pair, power idle, ailerons neutral, rudder opposite, elevator forward. Okay, full power. Coming up. I'm going to kick the rudder to the left this time. Coming up, coming up, coming up. Kick the rudder to the left. Whee! Okay, idle, neutral, stick forward. Use my G-force to pitch the airplane back up. Okay, so that would be the worst case, right? That you spin out of it. But here's the thing. If you go practice and learn stalls, or spins, you're going to know what that feels like. You're going to learn what the skidding turn feels like. And it's going to be no big deal, right? So, you know, when you're doing power on stalls without being comfortable with spins, it's like walking up to the edge of a cliff with a blindfold on, right? You just don't know where it's going to bite you, right? So that is to be preferably avoided, right, by being familiar with spins. Okay, let's see what else is on the list here. Yeah. Okay, so we talked about a lot today. This will probably be a shorter video. Yeah, on the shorter side. Okay, so this will be a shorter video, but let's just finish up with a few power on stalls that are nice and clean, and we won't be doing anything wacky, and we'll leave it there. And if you want to come back to Wahoo, we will. Otherwise, you're welcome to jump out now. So we'll do a few more power on stalls here straight ahead. Okay, I'm coming up, keeping the ball in the middle, looking out at my wings, keeping her level, ball's in the middle, pulling back, got my pitch attitude where I like it. There we go, straight ahead, right rudder over the top. That's another thing, is that depending on the airplane, you might have to use some aggressive ruddering as you come over the top, as you come into the stall and over the top through the brake. And so, you know, on that one I had to use a good little tap of right rudder, but it was just like, right, it was just a tap, but it's what kept the airplane straight as we went up into it, right? Little left rudder that time. Okay. All I'm saying is that when you do these, you got to be quick on your feet, right? You gotta use the rudder to keep the airplane level as you transition over the top. The left rudder that time. Right, and that's the thing, is that if the ailerons aren't working, the only way to fix things happening side to side is to uncoordinate the airplane, right? And be aggressive with your feet. Keep the airplane level with your feet. So it's exchanging what you would do with the stick and doing it with the rudder instead. So that's something we don't like, is having to change how we fix something depending on the phase of flight, right? Okay, we're coming up. Let's see here. We'll do one more. There we go. Oh, good tap over the top that time. Okay, what she needed. Okay, well, bit of a shorter video, but thanks for coming along for Power on Stalls. And let's see, in the next video, I'm trying to remember what I was thinking about doing in the next video. I don't remember. My brain's been a little mush recently, so who knows? We'll see. But anyway, I'm going to get headed back to Wahoo here. Get up the weather.
2,000, temperature 29 Celsius. Dew point 20, altimeter 3004. Remarks. Density altitude 3,000. Wahoo Municipal Airport. Automated weather observation. 1758 Zulu. Weather. Wind 260 at 11. Gust 17. Visibility 10.
Okay, so we got a pretty good stiff little crosswind. We have a 60-degree crosswind, gusting to 17, 11 gusting 17. So let's think about that. Good rule of thumb. Oh, come on. Get the squelch to quiet down here. There we go. Okay, good rule of thumb that I use is if the winds are 30 degrees off the runway, the crosswind is going to be half the component. If the winds are more than 60 degrees off the runway centerline, it's basically a full component. So it's 11 gusts and 17, 60 degrees off the runway. I'm just going to assume that I got a full crosswind, right? It might be 10 gusting 15 or something like that if you actually do the math. But for just off the top of your head, that rule works really well. Okay, I'm going to make a radio call here. Wahoo traffic, Luscombe 7790 pre is 7 miles to the northwest, inbound 20 Wahoo. Clear my ears here because we got so much altitude out of doing these power on stalls. Okay, and now we're going to start angling in here, and we're coming from the northwest. We're going to land runway 20, so we got to cross over midfield, do the reversing entry, and then come back around into the downwind. That would be the most proper way to do it. So we've got our wind figured out, we got our altimeter set, we're headed down. We're going to head down to 2,700 feet. That'll put us 1,500 feet above pattern, and then we'll cross over. Okay, and as you can see, it's rather green here these days, which I always love. Unfortunately, the green ends pretty quickly here because people want to turn what is green into the fields into green in their pockets. So we don't have much green time left here, unfortunately, in Nebraska. But the cool part about it is today's a windy day, and the corn is tall. You know, it's 5-6 foot tall right now here in early August. And what I love so much about it is that you can watch the gusts running through the fields. And I'll try and get a picture of it here, see if I can put it on the screen for you. But it's just so cool because, you know, I love fluid dynamics. And not that I know a whole ton about it, you know, just a couple classes from college, but I love fluid dynamics, and it's just so cool to watch those gusts run through the fields and to see what triggers them, you know. Sometimes they're just existing. Sometimes you can see how a building or a clump of trees is creating, you know, a dead zone or some or a certain type, you know, of gust that's doing a certain thing. It's just so cool. You almost never get you know, flow visualization like that in the in normal everyday life. So it's kind of cool to see the gusts, because then you can see that, you know, there might be half the field is no gusts at all, and you know the other half is crazy. I make a call here. Wahoo traffic, Luscombe 903's 4 miles to the west now. We're going to cross midfield, go out and join the 45 to the downwind 20 Wahoo. Okay, so yeah, the nice thing about the gusts in the fields, I can use them to verify the wind direction. And yeah, they're lining up pretty good with what the AWAS said. There we go. Let's try and cut down on the static here. Whew. Bumpy down low. At least it was nice upstairs. I got to go do a spin lesson after this, so hopefully it'll, the thermals aren't rising too much. But the good thing about windy days like this, at least, is it seems to kind of knock down the thermals. Not that one. Okay, seems to kind of knock down the thermals a little bit, or at least turn the columns into bubbles, and kind of helps top off the top altitude for where you're still getting kicked around by the thermals. So we're going to cross midfield here shortly. We're 2700. We're doing 90 mile an hour, which is pretty typical. Oil temperature peaked at 180, and we're down to 170 now. Good to see the oil temperature get up, although that really isn't that much, but that's the best these little Luscombes can do, or Continentals can do, usually. They don't get very hot, so got to keep a close eye on them for rust. Okay, eyes outside. We're crossing over midfield. Wahoo traffic, Luscombe 903's over midfield, and we're going to be joining a 45 to the left downwind 20 Wahoo. Whew, it is toasty. I can feel the heat coming through the window. But I'm going to keep the side windows closed here because they make a lot of racket on the sound here. And remember, Juan Brown did a good video about this a couple months ago or weeks ago. Don't be in a rush to teardrop back in, right? If you're doing that, right? The whole point of the teardrop is really to come out and join on the 45, right? Okay, so, you know, don't be in a rush. You should not be descending in that turn. You should not be, you know, coming right back in to the pattern, you know, with that turn. You should be driving it straight in at altitude, you know, for several miles before you actually join the downwind. That's kind of the whole intent of the maneuver. Okay, we're starting down to 2,200 feet. So I'm well past the pattern now. I'm probably 3 miles southeast now. Wahoo traffic, Luscombe 903 is 3 to the southeast. We're going to be in teardrop turn back for 45 left downwind 20 Wahoo. Okay, now what I want to do is get to pattern altitude before I turn. That way I can see anyone else coming in. And I'm just coming up on it. And there it is, and then I start the turn, and I've got my window here I can clear with. Yep, looking good. 2,200 feet. Deeper coordinated. Okay, got to correct for the wind here. Wahoo traffic, Luscombe 903 is a 45 to the left downwind 20 Wahoo. Right, I just don't know a good way to join the traffic pattern when you're coming from the opposite side, other than to go way, way, way around, or to do what we just did, cross over, and then join the 45, right? And you might be tempted to join on a right base. Naughty, naughty, right? The 91-126, I believe, says that all turns must be made in the direction of published traffic. Right? So we're not turning right base when it's left traffic, right? That's against the law, right? It's a breaking of regulations. It's not even just a preference or a recommendation. It is, right, breaking a regulation. So, yeah, don't make right bases to normal traffic. And if it's really important, you know, that if an airport does have right traffic on a certain runway and it's published, that you look that up ahead of time, right? Perfect example, we've got an airport here. Hang on just a second. Wahoo traffic, Luscombe 903s, left downwind, 20, Wahoo.
412 Uniform Hotel, approximately.
The next airport to the west here, David City, has right traffic published for 2 of their runways. And I was going in there one time with a guy on a flight review, and he was just like, I'm not doing that, I'm flying a left downwind. And I'm like, okay. And I let him start that, and then guess what? We came nose to nose with a tower, right? We didn't get anywhere close to it. And then he was like, oh, I see why I'm supposed to do this, right? So, yeah, that right pattern is there for a reason. Okay, now the wind's kicking across the pattern here from across, so that's carrying me away from the runway, so I got to turn real early. Wahoo traffic, Luscombe 903s, left base, 20, Wahoo. Okay, so thinking about the wind in advance, very important, right? And then we've got a headwind here, so we got to be just a little bit on the fast side, on top of best glide speed, if we're going to glide with the best glide angle we can get. So I'm just a little fast, I'm 75. And a little iffy here on this one, even though it looks really steep to me right now. I know that wind's really, really pushing, so I'm going to wait till I get around the turn to final to decide if I'm going to slip or not. Okay, and now final's clear. Wahoo traffic, Luscombe 903s, final 20, full stop, Wahoo. Okay, yep, that wind is kicking. Okay, line her up, and then I'm going to slip this way. Good thing I didn't slip too early. Oh yeah, we got a good little crosswind here. All right, wheel landing, right wheel down first. Ooh, ooh. There we go. Stick to the right, fight the wind, fight, fight, fight. Okay, tail wheel coming down. Ooh, she's got a fight on her hands. Okay, I'm going to try and get off here at this taxiway. Yep, there we go. Get my window open. Okay, mower's clear. We're clear all around. Wahoo traffic, Luscombe 903s, clear of 20, taxi to the hangars, Wahoo. Yep, you can always be sure on a good gusty crosswind day in a Luscombe, you're going to have a fight on your hands. Okay, so got the stick to the right. All right, well, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. A little bit shorter and more topic focused, but, you know, those seem to help those who are, you know, still working on their private certificates. We might do a video debunking some myths about the backside of the power curve or the region of reverse command. Might be able to get out and do a video on crosswinds someday. Today actually would be a really good video to do crosswinds. But like I said, I got a spin lesson to go do, and I always feel like trash after that, so that won't work. Most likely. Depends. If the student feels like trash before I do, then maybe. But we'll see. So there's that. And we're crossing 1331. Keeping her straight. Wahoo traffic, Luscombe 903 is crossing 1331. Wahoo. And whoop, a little swirly there. Probably gust coming off the building. Wahoo traffic, Luscombe 903 is clear 1331. Wahoo. Okay, fuel's coming off. Fuel is off. Okay, winds are out of the southwest, so it'll actually be good to point it in this way. Turn the radio off. Okay, watch out for the pothole. Yeah, we got the fuel off so that the engine will eventually die because we don't have mixture. We missed the pothole. Now all we gotta do is miss the ground squirrels. Well, we could do without them, but. Alright guys, thanks for coming along. I hope you enjoyed this power on stall video. And leave some ideas. Always need ideas for videos. I've got a long list of ones, but it's always, you know, one that would be interesting. And it just depends. So, oh, turn that off. There we go. Now we get our, now that we're safe-ish, right? Oh, we can kind of reset stuff. There we go. Gonna die here any minute. And then we'll, there she goes. All right, guys. We'll see you in the next video. Fly safe.